What's good, everybody? It's your boy, O'Shea Duke Jackson, back at it again with another episode of The Celebrity Junk. You know what I've noticed from being online is that a lot of people in the black community tend to be, somewhat religious. I'm not saying all the time Christian, but somewhat religion, or have some belief in God. What I found out is that a lot of people have very, very low faith in churches. Almost to the same way like a lot of people from like Nigeria or African countries have faith in their governments, right? And people think very negatively of black pastors in a time where that was a very high honor to have in the black community. But many people, especially men, look at black churches as being charlatans, scammers, and just corrupt people altogether. Now, the late great Terry Swoop, who was a YouTuber here, broke this down pretty clearly in a video in 2015 called "The Black Church is Robbing Black People." I'll play a little bit of that and then we'll come back.
A lot of these black churches are robbing black people. These churches make millions of dollars in donations, and they don't give any of that money back to the black community. Pastor Dollar is a preacher in Atlanta, Georgia, and he's asking his congregation to donate him $65 million so he can get another plane. Now, he has about 200,000 members at his church. And most of these members are poor black people. There's a lot of poverty in Atlanta. When you go to Atlanta, you see people sleeping on the sidewalk. Atlanta has one of the largest homeless populations in the country. People sleeping on the sidewalk. You got women with their kids sleeping outside. That's how bad the poverty is in Atlanta, Georgia. And for this man to be asking these poor black people to give whatever money they have so he can get another plane, it just goes to show how heartless this man is. How full of shit this man is. This man is nothing but a pimp. Look at his house. Look at his cars. He preaches more about money than he does about God. Whenever you see a preacher preach more about money than they do about God, that's when you know they're full of shit. But there's some people that will do anything that the pastor tells them to do.
So that video in 2015 is holding true to this day. And of course, my own mother sent me this article, but you guys sent it before she did. And we're talking about in New Orleans, pastor admits that he defrauded a church and a school of $900,000.
What the hell did you just say?
Who is this person? Reverend Charles Southall, age 64. Now, this particular pastor created the Edgar P. Harney Spirit of Excellence Academy as a charter school in New Orleans and an affiliated school in Baton Rouge. And of course, the school received funds, grants, and loans. The Baton Rouge school, never opened. In between 2013 and 2017, nearly $221,000 was diverted to a bank account controlled by the pastor and a co-conspirator. Okay. Now, also, there's other rental properties which he diverted about $150,000 into his own personal accounts. He also sold properties owned from the church in which he pocketed $500,000. Now, what am I saying, guys? I'm not saying that every black church pastor is like this. This is just, sometimes extremes. Okay. And now obviously he'll be sentenced in, very soon for what he has agreed to, 3 months. He can face up to 10 years in prison. And I'm pretty sure that's going to put a hold on his pastoral career. But the reality that I want to talk about, guys, is that even if the preachers are not stealing money, they're not doing anything. They're not doing anything for the black community. And that is our fault. Now, for them stealing money, that's their fault. But for those of us who say that we are in the black church, we are Christians and all of this other stuff, we don't force the communities, we don't force anybody to do anything for us. Anybody who says they are our leader, are people who are our mentors, especially if we're giving money to them, we don't ask for value. When we go out and we look for things from the community and resources, one of the best institutions that should bring those resources are churches. Why? We fund them. There are like 13,000 of them on the block. We don't force them to do stuff, force them to create schools, force them to create tutoring programs. But all they want to be able to do is get a Hammond organ and some shout music, and that's it. The pastor doesn't even live anywhere near where the parishioners live. And many times, they're doing way worse off than he is. And he's not even showing up to church maybe 3 days a week. Maybe it comes a Bible study. Maybe it comes a Sunday service. The business meeting in which he never wants to talk about what's going on with the church's finances because he's not doing anything. And we continuously give our money to the pastor and his wife so they can go on luxurious cruises, go to luxurious places, and there's nothing happening. So we're spending all this money and we're getting no development. And I'm not saying that every church does this, right? But we're getting no development. There are no, and let me just say this. Churches don't start businesses, just like governments don't start businesses. But churches can be a catalyst for those things to happen. They can be. People do business because business owners go to churches. Churches can be the spearheading of development. Churches bring people together. Churches can bring couples together. And the churches are not carrying out these ministries. They're not doing anything. And then generally what you're seeing is pastors, feeling like they're entitled to steal from churches. And they are stealing. We talk about racism. We talk about white supremacy. We talk about taking advantage of black men or black women. Nobody does that better than the black church. And then what happens is it turns people off towards religion, period. It turns people off to the gospel of Jesus Christ, or it turns people off to what's happening in the mosque. Because the people who are supposed to be in the church carrying out the function that the churches play in the community, and churches in black communities are not just churches. They're social vehicles for change. They've always been that. Churches are the social catalyst for change, tutoring programs, where ideas can come together and get started. They come in churches. Families get brought up in churches. Economies can start from churches. Although churches don't create businesses, they can be the start of creating those communities that lead into businesses. But what we're seeing is the churches, and especially somebody this guy's age, 64, and you know what our people have been through. You know what kind of cities, Baton Rouge and New Orleans, you know, the kind of people that need this stuff, and you steal from these people, you're lower than low. But that's what's been happening in Black America, and that is why Black people in a lot of cities, look at Detroit, look at Memphis, nothing but churches, no development. Can't get anything started in Detroit and Memphis, but you got all these churches. Atlanta, all these churches that are doing nothing for our people. But guys, what do you think? It's your boy, O'Shea Duke Jackson, back at it again with another episode of The Celebrity Drunk. Appreciate you for all that you do. Subscribe, hit the bell. We're out.